Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the 192nd conversation here on the virtual CISO moment, getting close to 200. Today, Thomas Marr joins us. He is Senior Systems Security Engineer for Lockheed Martin. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having me, Greg. It's a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat cybersecurity, information security, and all that fun stuff here. Would like to start, though, by asking about your journey. How and why you got started in information security, and what led you to where you're at today?
Sure. Well, today I'm like you mentioned, a senior information systems security engineer. I've spent about 10 years in information security. It started at United Health Group, focusing mainly on HIPAA compliance. That was my first sort of exposure to the field. And then after my time at United Health Group, I spent some time in the Army. I enlisted for 4 years, specifically in military intelligence, specializing in SIGINT and OSINT, which really helped build that foundation. During my time in the Army, I also completed my associate's and my bachelor's degrees in information and computer science. Got too many certifications to count. I have way less now. So one of those is CISSP. I'm an ISC squared member, which I know is a very
well, no. Now you got to call it ISC2.
ISC2
because they rebranded. Yeah, it's not ISC squared anymore. It's ISC2. And for me too, it's hard for me to adjust because I'm like, I've been saying ISC squared for almost 20 years now.
Man, I feel old now. I'm old enough to remember when it was called ISC squared.
I think the rebranding has only been like the last about a year and a half ago. So it's just been recent. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good to know. I'm good to know. So IC2 member. Over time, especially during my time in the Army, I gravitated towards roles where I could use the skill set that I developed during my time in the Army and my time prior to the Army United Health Group, to use that skill set to support national security and critical systems more directly. This led me to initially, after I got out of the Army, join a company called Logarithm. They're called, and they got bought out by Exabeam apparently, so they're now called Exabeam. I was a member of their government professional services team. Spent a little bit of time there, and then after that I spent time between two major Fortune 500 aerospace defense companies. About a year ago, I was working at L3Harris Technologies, but nowadays I'm currently working at Lockheed Martin. And in terms of where my career path is headed and where it is now, I prefer being in the weeds. So I plan to stay an individual contributor while at the same time continuously growing my knowledge of cutting edge technology. In terms of what drives me, I'd say to be where I am, I would say the mission. Yeah. Overall, protecting vulnerable people and vulnerable systems from real world threats that aren't often in people's conscious. To me, cybersecurity isn't just a job; it's a responsibility, especially in the environments where I work in, which have national security implications if things go wrong. But I still find time to stay connected with the information security community where I can, contribute where I can, whether that's through either knowledge sharing or mentorship.
So I got a question about Lockheed Martin, and I have a connection. And don't worry, this is not something which is going to violate any sort of NDA or get you in trouble. It's just a generalist question. So first of all, to preface, when I was in the Air Force, I was a C-130 crew chief, and which basically is sort of like a generalist mechanic. We perform flight inspections on aircraft for launching, and then when they recover them, we fuel them, all that ground operation stuff. And when I was doing one of my, I think, a senior design project for mechanical engineering, when I was going to University of Buffalo, I was working with a group, and we had to take a real world thing and talk about the mechanics behind it. And so I'm like, you know what? I've always been fascinated by the C-130 has these huge tires that come down. They don't swing down. They kind of like they drop down slowly. And how this is done, I know from the experience, was a big jack screw. So I wrote, here's where it's relevant to information security. I wrote Lockheed Martin. I'm like, hey, can you send me any sort of information you have on the materials and construction and the design of your jack screw for C-130? And within 2 weeks, I got this nice manila envelope back with drawings and transparencies and material lists and this and that. I mean, it was wonderful stuff. I'm guessing that probably today, I couldn't do that from an information security perspective. I mean, is that fair to say that that would be intellectual property that maybe something like a Lockheed Martin would say, or at the very least ask me some questions like, really, who are you and why do you want to know about our aircraft?
Yeah, I don't want to speculate too much, but I would say nowadays I'd find that very concerning as an information security professional that that information was shared specific to that aircraft. Now, I mean, if it's in terms of like general aerospace education, that's a different story, but it sounds like it was specific to the C-130 itself. So yeah, that's fair to be concerned about.
So now that I have said that, I just want to be clear. You don't need to report me to Lockheed Martin for something that I did like over 30 years ago, and I was not trying to replicate the C-130. Believe me.
No, I don't think you were selling China our secrets, so you should be fine.
They probably actually had it because even back then, the C-130 has been around since like the late 40s or early 50s or something like that. But I digress. One other question I always love to ask folks who have been in the military beforehand is, outside of the stuff that obviously is directly applicable to InfoSec, what's like one thing that you learned being in the military that may have now helped you, if there is any one thing that has helped you in your career today?
My goodness, there's too many things to count in terms of how the military helped me. I would say the number one way the military helped me, and this is not just applicable to information security, but in life in general, is to take control of your life, take control of your destiny. If you don't like somewhere you are, do whatever you can to get out of there, to work towards a point where you don't have to stay in that bad situation anymore. More specific to information security, I learned about signals intelligence and open source intelligence, and I was able to apply that technical knowledge to cybersecurity because in signals intelligence, I learned about computer networking, and I believe computer networking is a fundamental tenet of foundational cybersecurity knowledge. I believe that computer networking, operating systems, and computer architecture are the three pillars of before you can even start learning about cybersecurity. You have to understand those. So, yes, I would say both as a role, both in my role and as a soldier, it helped me quite a bit.
Yeah, and I definitely can relate to the first one as far as like taking control of your future. You have options, and sometimes, you know, what they say is like luck is the intersection of preparedness and opportunity or something like that. I think it is. And so you may not have an opportunity in front of you initially, but if you prepare yourself for it, then that's how you create your chance to walk through doorways. So it's not like something comes up, now I got to do something. It's like, no, you should be always constantly preparing for it, I think. So given all of that, and given the environment today, what would you think is, from your opinion, from your perspective, what's one or a couple of the more significant threats to information security and cybersecurity for small and mid-sized businesses?
So specific to small and mid-sized businesses, I would say ransomware. I'd say that's probably the number one major threat. So the reason for that being is that attackers know that the resources of these businesses isn't a lot compared to larger enterprises that are expecting these kinds of things. You hear a lie pretty often. We're too small for anyone to want to hack. It's not true. It's not true. It has nothing to do with that. It's how vulnerable you are. That determines.
And actually, would it be fair to say that maybe not only is that not true, but it's almost flipped somewhat because you have the larger businesses that have the capability to protect against something like ransomware and other threats and all of that, whereas the smaller businesses don't. So now the smaller businesses become maybe a softer target.
Exactly. I would say that's a great way to put it. Um, it's a shame that a lot of businesses that don't think like that. They need to. The important thing is to understand how these hackers think, how these
Mhm.
specifically cyber criminals think and plan their attacks. So yeah, I would completely agree with what you said. Um, Specifically, a common scenario is a something as simple as a phishing email, which I think that's one of the most talked about, yet still one of the most highly exploited vulnerabilities out there.
Because it
So,
works.
because it works, it works. People are easy to fool.
Mhm.
Um, it can be a phishing email, or it can be a misconfigured endpoint, and just one of those two things, or even both, could result in downtime, which is bad for the business because if you're down, you're not selling, you're not making money.
Mhm.
And in the most serious situations, particularly with ransomware, it could lead to an operational shutdown completely. And in my opinion, the threat isn't just related to technology as well. It's there are other things to consider like social engineering because these attackers, these cyber criminals, they know how to manipulate people, processes, and timing, not just
Mhm.
technology. They know to time their strikes, when to strike, and what pain points they need to hit to maximize damage.
So, from the small business owner, the small business executive's perspective, um, let's just say you were an advisor for a small business or small medium-sized business, and you recognize that maybe they're not paying as much attention to the ransomware threat as they should. Again, they are a poster child, if you will, for the thought of like, well, we're too small. Why would someone attack us? Maybe they even said that to you. Well, how would you approach that? How would you try to convince that sort of the leadership there that this is a real threat to your business and you've got to take this seriously?
Well, whenever you're presenting a case for cybersecurity to business leaders, it needs to make business sense, and by that I mean they need to understand how much money they'd be losing by not dedicating the resources to cybersecurity. Um, I would say maybe not. They don't have to have a dedicated cybersecurity team, though that help like large businesses do. But having a SOC, uh, having something
Hmm.
rather than just doing nothing, and never forgetting the fundamentals because educating your employees to be looking out for phishing. There are plenty of companies who do that these days. Um, Understanding the fundamentals of where you can be attacked. It doesn't like because like we mentioned in the previous question, it's not just the complex technical uber smart stuff. It's people. People need to be aware.
Right. It's usually it seems like the simplest things that can trip us up. It used to be one of the things I think we've done a good job of combating this threat to an extent. At least I don't hear as much about it anymore. But remember, oh, I can't remember the exact date, but I think like Stuxnet was like what 2011-ish, something like that. And that was the exploit was simply taking a USB drive and leaving it in a parking lot in various areas. And at some point in time, at one of the Iranian nuclear research facilities, somebody picked it up, put it on the network, and bam, you're there. You have now gotten around all of the network controls. So we don't see that as much anymore because we can move large files securely very easily now, as opposed to like 14 years ago or so. But yet there's still the exploitation of the human element there. And there's been so much talked about phishing, about better ways to combat it and better ways to um, help reduce that risk. And so I always ask folks these questions, but I rarely talk about my view on it. And I want your opinion on this. It's like, Do you think that maybe part of the problem is that we as a society have become so micro focused, like micro attention spans, that we'll be talking about something and then our attention on it is gone like 3 seconds later, and we move on to the next thing. And we're so used to like processing so much stuff at once that we're fundamentally beginning to forget how to slow down. The government says, I think they still say, stop, think, and connect. In that order: stop, think, then connect. Do you do you think that that's a problem in today's society? I've never asked this of anyone before, but I do, and maybe I'm off base.
No, I don't think you're off base at all. I definitely think that today's generation has a very short attention span due to a number of factors, particularly the availability of smartphones and immediate gratification whenever you need some information. Another specific example would be TikTok, short form videos. I think that's the most common example that people
Hmm.
reference these days. So yeah, I do think short attention spans can contribute to ignoring or putting on the back burner higher priority items.
I'm sorry, what'd you say? No, I'm just kidding. No, it's I think it's a huge problem, and I think that what I've been trying to do in my life, at least, is to try to intentionally start slowing down and focus more on being. They talk about your life in general to try to be present. Whatever I'm doing at the moment, work wise, I try to be present. So, like for example, in the course of us recording this so far, I've got like probably 8 Chrome profiles open with an average of probably 12 tabs open on each. I've got email up, I've got Slack up, I've got LinkedIn up. I was just got a ding from a message on LinkedIn. I had a Slack ding come in. I see a Teams message over there that, oh, okay, that's just a new picture that a friend of mine sent me. All this stuff has now happened in the last few minutes since we've been talking. And I tell you, it's been difficult for me to ignore that because it's right in front of me. So I think that maybe some of the things that we need to do is to help eliminate those distractions. So particularly now bringing it back home to talking about email and ransomware. If we can look at, when we look at email as like, okay, I'm going to focus on email for 10 minutes. I'm not going to focus on anything else. I'm going to focus on email. Maybe that'll get us a little bit more towards the stop, think, and connect instead of looking at a message real fast. And don't do it on your phone if you can avoid it, because this is meant to be like real fast. Did I give anything away there? You can probably see my phone number on it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna hack you. It won't be me who hacks you. It'll be someone else, not me.
No, actually, I think the only thing I have on here is my email address and the phone number if you find this phone so that you can get a hold of me, which is the reason for it. So we got off track there a little bit, but I think that was a pretty good discussion. But any other thoughts with regards to threats to SMBs?
Yes, specifically to add to your point, yeah, my way of thinking is to always focus on the bigger picture. That's something that's always at the front of my mind whenever I'm doing whatever it is I'm doing. So, and I think that's been lost in today's generation in a lot of ways because of the instant gratification culture. So yeah, always focus on the bigger picture. That's probably the number one piece of advice to anyone wanting to be successful and wanting to um, focus on bigger picture. So in terms of SMBs, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no. I would say security is often viewed as a cost center and not as a business enabler, which is why it's important to present the business case for cybersecurity, what the cost savings is, statistics on the percentage of small businesses that are attacked versus large businesses, doing a comprehensive, I guess, presentation on the business case. Otherwise, they're not going to listen.
Yeah, that's one of the problems. I think we as it's not limited to SMBs. I think we as security professionals, even those whose job, like the CISO, their job is to communicate the threat environment effectively so that the C-suite and the board of directors can make risk-informed decisions. I don't think that that effectively portion of that we fail at because we focus so much on security stuff that we don't focus on learning how to talk business language.
Yeah, business language is definitely important. And the investment into information security, I mean, it isn't super expensive things like the latest, greatest next gen security tool. These are things like tabletop exercises, user training, even something as simple as if your network is that big, network segmentation. Those simple things by themselves can mitigate a lot of threats. So
yeah, and you mentioned earlier the idea of going back to the basics and just doing the basics that we need to not necessarily worry about like all these hyper complex tools. If we do the foundational items, I guess is probably the best way to say it, and focus on that and be intentional about it. Take a moment and stop, think, connect, that sort of thing. But all of this can be very stressful for those of us that would prefer to like have 100% perfection in protecting the environment and the people and the information. And we realize that we can't get there. And it gets frustrating when we're like, sometimes we as practitioners, we start like going off on the dumb user who clicked on a link. And it's really not a dumb user. It's someone just being human. I mean, if you've got someone who repeatedly clicks on something, then there's a problem with awareness and training and all of that. And that's a different thing. But we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes at times. And yet it gets frustrating and it gets stressful that we can't do exactly what we want to do. And it's hard to accept that case. And sometimes I think we tend to over internalize that and over stress it. And because of that, we need to constantly be reminding ourselves that we need to step away from this every now and then, and well, more often than every now and then. And we have to have a balance in our lives, and part of that means decompressing. Well, Thomas, what's one of the things that you do to decompress from the stresses of cyber?
Great question. So specifically with my team, we go out and play basketball every now and then.
Okay.
With my workplace team. Outside of that, personally, I like to play an instrument. I play guitar, and that helps calms me down a lot whenever I'm like really worked up. Mm-hmm. And another one I'd say is pickleball. Pickleball is very fun. It keeps you active too, which is what I need.
Yeah, well, I can agree with the guitar. That's hence why I was pointing at that. People have asked me, it's like, well, who is your influence? Who do you? I'm like, nobody's my influence, and I'm really terrible on the guitar. It's just I like to, on occasion, just kind of doink at it, I guess. And pickleball, I've actually resisted myself getting into because I know what would happen if I do. I would get really sucked into it because I was like that with racquetball for about 12 years. But and at some point in time, if I have the time, I'm going to get sucked into pickleball. So are you like a pickleball pro or amateur or kind of in the middle?
So I view pickleball the same way I do bowling. I'm not good at it, but I do it for fun. Out of curiosity, sorry, I just saw the guitar. What kind of guitar do you have?
This one is a really cheap Fender. It was my first acoustic. It's a DG7. Right. And I guess I probably bought this. I bought this when I first moved to Tennessee 30 years ago. Wow. So
and it's still held up.
Yep, I've written some songs on it. I've played open mics. I don't do it anymore. But yeah, I'm really not.
You got to show me sometime.
No, I'm really well. There's a video out there of me doing one song from last year. Maybe I'll post that on LinkedIn or something. So it was what actually I did at one point in time. What it was is that last year, maybe about a year and a half ago, I after like 26 years of not even touching a guitar, I'm like, well, let me see if I can still learn to play. And this is almost like TMI, but one of my favorite artists growing up was Billy Joel, and Billy Joel hadn't released any new significant material since '93. Except for that he did last year. he released a single which did pretty well. Turn the Lights Back On, I think it was. And I'm like, you know what? I'm starting to play on this guitar thing. I want to learn how to play that Billy Joel song. And so that was my commitment. I did. I
Yes.
recorded it. I posted it on LinkedIn. And the whole thing was all about, hey, you can still learn stuff. I don't remember the exact tagline, so it's out there somewhere. It sucks. Don't worry
Oh,
about
that's
it.
cool. Gosh, I doubt it. I doubt it, but I'm going to be digging for it.
Yeah. Well, outside of trying to find really, really bad acoustic renditions of Billy Joel songs, what else do you have coming up as far as future plans?
As far as future plans, so I do plan on continuing to grow as an individual contributor while staying deep in the weeds when it comes to cutting edge defense tech and secure systems.
Mm-hmm.
I also am going to be starting a graduate degree this fall. Going to try to get my master's. I
In
ideally
what?
So I've narrowed it down to two majors: cybersecurity and electrical and computer engineering.
Very good.
Thank you, thank you.
Going
Yeah,
back for your master's as an adult is difficult, and I did that because I worked at a university. I was able to do like one class a semester free tuition, and it took me probably about 5
nice.
years to do. But you know, I didn't have any children, so that made it a little bit easier. But it's still not easy. So congratulations on starting or getting ready to start that. It's a cool thing to do, and it's also, I don't know if you're going to find this, but for me, it was like just like the guitar playing thing. It's like, okay, I'm a couple of decades out from my bachelor's, but I'm like, yeah, I can still learn well. So that was pretty cool. It was nice to get that degree. So
It's, I mean, always learning. That's the mindset, not just in life, but in cybersecurity. You're
mhm.
always going to be learning. You're never going to know everything. So be ready to fail. Be ready to learn how to overcome that failure as well.
Yeah, and there's always opportunity for it. A colleague I worked with almost 20 years ago, he told me yesterday that he is just about done with his PhD, and so his last name is Brown, and I'm like, well, I'm going to call you Doc Brown from now on, and you can call me Marty. He
That is
liked that.
awesome. That is too good.
I'm definitely going to call him Doc going forward. So.
Heck yeah, man.
Well, cool, man. Listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. It's been a nice, engaging, interesting conversation. Covered everything from guitars to jack screws to threats and some military stuff in between. I mean, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've really had a great time talking to you, Greg.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining, and everybody stay secure.